And welcome back to another video of My Creative Life with Kelssweetie, where we read books and we make art. Today we are covering my March TBR. I'm so excited because it is Women's History Month, which means I am reading femme horror, which is arguably my favorite. It's not even arguably. It's pretty clear. I love reading women-focused horror. Love it. Absolutely love it. Can't get enough of it. If I had to pick a genre that I'm going to read for the rest of my life, it's women doing weird stuff. That's all. That's all I want to read. That I don't know when I'll ever be like, do I want to read a woman doing weird stuff? Never. I've never met the day where I wanted to, where I went, I think I'm going to turn it down. Like, never have I ever. So I'm so excited for this month. I have a lot of physical reads. I literally just got finished, just got finished filming my February wrap-up. And I definitely ended that video with, it was really rough because I had a lot of physical reads. Well, Kelsey still didn't learn her lesson, and she put a lot of physical reads on her TBR. Here's the thing. If a book is very popular, I personally think it should be a layup to just go, oh, and we make a physical read. I don't know why we make an audiobook. I don't know why there's not audiobooks for some of these books that are very popular. Like, it's not making sense to me. They're not long. I'm hoping that there is a weekend or a day where I can really chop away at this. Last month, I wanted to do a 24-hour reading vlog type of situation like I did in January, which is why I think I knocked out so many books in January. It is really great having like a day where I'm just like, okay, all you're doing is reading this for 24 hours. However, the reality of the matter is that every single hour of my life is used to do something. And so, last month, basically the whole idea of my 24-hour reading situation went to shit. And it may this month. Who knows? I'm already off to a good start because I've already read one of these and it was really, really great. So, all that being said, let's get into the intro so we can talk about what I'm reading this upcoming month. I'm very, very excited to share with y'all my TBR. I love women in horror. As I said in the intro, I am so excited for this upcoming month because it is my favorite genre, women doing weird stuff, femmes doing weird stuff. And I've already started with my TBR. I've already finished a book. I'm starting a new book already. So we're already off to a good start because it's only the 5th of March as I'm recording this. So we're already 5 days into the month and I've already got one out and already started another. The weekend's coming up. I'm still thinking about when I'll do a 24-hour read because I have some physicals in here. However, my Libby is working towards my good and has already given me 2 of my other like trans horror reads that I'm going to be reading as well this month. I made it very clear, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now, it is necessary that when we do these women's book reviews and when we include these conversations about women, we need to include trans women in that conversation. I think for a very long time, we've regulated trans women and trans femmes to June. You only get to be visible during June when I read a trans horror. And that's wild because then we're basically sitting there going, yeah, you're still not a part of the women's group, which is wild because if your politics and what you're saying is that, you know, trans women are women, then they should be included in this lineup. And I think, again, these are these small things that really matter towards, you know, keeping that same energy. If your politics are here, then keep that same energy and keep them there. So I'm excited to be saying that because I have 2 books that I'm looking forward to and my Libby just gave me the audiobooks. So I'm currently working through one of them. I'm hoping to pick up the next one after I read Dearest, which is what I've started now. Let's just get into the TBR because I'm already starting to move through what I'm actually reading and I think I'm going to get a little lost in the sauce. I'm going to start with the first one that I've already read. I've already gotten it out of here. I won't talk too much about the review on it. Just know that I absolutely enjoyed the message and I didn't see it going in this direction and I'm glad it did And that's The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. This is my sweet reads for pick for the month of March. My book club, the Sweethearts Book Club over on Fable. Please join us. Basically, the whole shtick is that regardless of our name, we read a lot of horror and weird lit and speculative fiction. So we are sweethearts and we're sweetie pies and we read a lot of horrific things. It's wonderful. This was our pick for March. I'm glad that we chose this for March because the direction and the message of it is very appropriate regarding women's rights, fighting misogyny, and not just fighting misogyny in regards to men, but the message that I think I have not seen a lot of people talk about in regards to this book is the conversation around how, especially millennials, like those of a younger generation, are really fighting against this idea of misogyny and a woman's place and all of these other things that are put upon us in society in regards to, you know, femmes against men and masked folks, and that those fights are happening at home. That the generation before us, Gen X and the silent generation, and many of those are victims of that thought process and that society, and we are born out of them. That our mothers, unfortunately, are very caught up in the idea of being accepted by men, are very caught up in the fact of the idea of self-worth being given to them by a man. And we're constantly frustrated at them because we're just like, yo, wake up. Like, you don't need to do that. You're amazing. Why are you doing that? Like, that's wild. And then on the other side of it, also having our fathers who lack vulnerability because of the toxic masculinity that was within their generation, aren't able to really understand where we're coming from and what we're trying to do, and that you know, they're frustrated with us, and that that we're not sitting here and being the daughters that they wanted, or whatever the case is. And a lot of selfishness. I think the one main thing that I did not see this going in is that all of the adults in this book are selfish. So selfish, so self-centered, so just like that generation, the Generation X, the generation right before us millennials, were so neglected in the conversation of being a person, not simply being a child, being somebody's son or daughter or whatever. They did not have time to develop a personality or a sense of self. And because of that lack of sense of self, they are so self-centered when it comes to anyone else trying, like their children trying to be with them, anyone else trying to be with them, because they didn't get to be selfish with themselves outwardly. And so they're constantly wanting others to deal with it, but they don't know who they are. It's very, very complicated. I'll talk about it more whenever I get to my March wrap up, but I just wanted to insert all of that because I feel like if I would have known some of those topics, I would have read this so much sooner. Because it's pitched as a Korean American college girl becomes a serial killer and she eats eyeballs after her parents divorce and her Korean mother starts dating a horrible Republican white guy who with an Asian fetish. That's how it's pitched, and it's a wonderful pitch. It's absolutely amazing. However, if I would have known that all these other messages and conversations were going to be in here, I would have picked this up so much quicker. I listened to this within a day. The audiobook is only like 8 hours. So I basically listened to it during a work shift and was blown away by the end of it and literally had to take a breath because I was like, that's a 4.5. Now, you may be asking, Kelsey, if you love this so much, why didn't you rate it higher? I'll talk about it more during my wrap up. But I cannot tell you enough to pick up this book. I know everybody in the horror community has been reading this like crazy, but here's another one. Everybody should read this book. But this is how I started off my month. I wanted to get the kind of low-key review and a part of my TBR thing out of the way since I already read this. And it would have been weird to act like I hadn't read it because of how much I knew about this book now. So now we got that out of the way. This is how I started my month. I'm very excited to start through the rest of my month since this is such a strong start, especially considering how last month was. The next book that I've started, I've not gotten far enough in this book that it'll turn into a review type of thing, so don't worry about it. But the next one that I've started is Dearest by Jackie Walters. Pick this book up. One, because of the cover. The cover was crazy. Also, this book was in the running for my Sweet Reads awards that I did last year, where I basically took both books that I had read throughout the year and books on my TBR, and I had y'all choose which ones you felt were winners. So it was like a choice awards. And this was one of the winners. a lot of people were just like, oh, he would love this book. It's mother horror. And that's my favorite trope. That's one of my favorite tropes. And it definitely is mother horror from the beginning. I'm very interested to see where it goes, the direction it kind of leads in. But it's very interesting so far, and I can see this going real weird real quickly. So I'm going to read the synopsis for you because I've not gotten far enough in it to kind of give you like my TLDR, like personal synopsis of it. A new mom in need of help opens the door to her long estranged mother, only to invite something much darker inside. Flora is a new mom enamored of her baby girl Iris, who has arrived a few weeks early. But when her husband's still deployed, Flora must navigate the newborn stage alone. As the sleepless nights pass in their half-empty home, the edges of her reality begin to blur. Household items seem to move of their own accord, and Flora is certain someone is talking to Iris through the baby monitor. Just as Flora becomes convinced she is losing her mind, a surprising guest shows up to help. Flora's own mother, to whom she hasn't spoken in years. Will caring for the baby help them to mend their fraught relationship and start anew, or is there more that Flora's mother isn't telling her about the events that led to their estrangement? As stranger and scarier events unfold, Flora begins to fear that her mother's secrets have allowed something truly evil to enter her home. She must decide, is her hold on reality slipping dangerously away, or is she in fact the only thing standing between a terrifying visitor and her baby? Mother horror. Absolutely love it. It's my favorite genre. Always will be. So I'm really excited to be getting into this one. So far, it's fine. So far, it's good. It's very much talking about, you know, the post-depression, the, what is it? The, post-prenatal, the post-pregnancy depression. Is that what the word is? I feel like my brain is is like losing brain cells. But basically, it's talking very much about new mom depression, so far, and y'all know that I love that conversation. Y'all know that I absolutely love that conversation. So far, so good. We'll see where it goes. Again, this is about 8 hours or so. This is the size book that I love. This is the sweet spot for the book that I love. And because a lot of my books are this size, I feel very good. Last month, I read some thick ones. It was a thick one that I started the month off with, and I should have known, but it is what it is. I feel a lot better moving into this month with something that's, what are we talking about here? It's like 350? No, it's about 300 pages, which that's a beautiful size for me personally. I'll let y'all know when the time comes how this is going. But so far, so good. I'm going to now go through my next 3 books that are all physical reads before I go into my 2 books that I don't have physically, and they're my trans femme. They're not really horror. They're more like lit fic books. I'm very concerned that I have 3 physical reads because I'm not a physical reader. However, I've been meaning to read these books for a while, and they also feel very appropriate for this month. So we're going to persist. First, starting off is Sugar by Mia Ballard. I have been very, very excited to read Mia Ballard's work. I know that Shy Girl just came out. A lot of people have said it is messed up and amazing, and I can't wait to read that one as well. But I did feel like Sugar I need to pick up first because it does have to do with like a witch and revenge and all this other like love witch type of thing, and so I'm excited to read it. Also, I really love this cover. I have heard mixed things about this cover, that it may be AI. I hope it's not. I'm gonna be honest, I really hope that it's not. But it is an indie publisher, so I think that it doesn't have an audiobook. That's the thing about indie. I want to support so many more indie authors, but we don't have audiobooks, and because of how I read, it's very hard to do so. I think if there's short stories or collections of stories, I think it becomes easier. But in something like this, where it's a full-length novel, it becomes very hard. Now, this, again, is only nearing 300 pages. It's like 250 pages. So it feels doable, she said as her last words. But it feels very doable. We will see if it is. I am excited to read it, though. Some people have said, a majority have said that it's really good. I think some people really didn't see it going in the direction that it did, but I've heard that a lot of people said that it was good. Satara is unhinged and unwell. My favorite type of woman. When 35-year-old Satara Stratton discovers her husband Dean's treacherous affair with her best friend Leela, she plunges into familiar territory, deceit and death. Having disposed of men before without a hitch, she finds a new thrill in this betrayal. But with Leela on a crusade to expose her guilt, Satara must outpace everyone to keep her secret safe. Her fate intertwines with Millicent That's the word. Millicent Garcelle, a love witch whose tempting spell seemed a perfect solution to Satara's woes. With newfound power at her fingertips, she gleefully manipulates the affections of those around her. Yet Satara's lust for love proves her ultimate downfall, and she soon learns that while it's easy to bend others to her will, controlling her own heart is a perilous art indeed. Prepare for a darkly compelling journey where the boundaries of desire and devastation blur, and the quest for love becomes Satara's most lethal game. Oh, step into the twisted psychedelic world of a femme fatale hooked on love and acid, and this gripping tale of suburban chaos served with a 70s twist. Satara navigates? Oh, that's a typo if I've ever seen one. Navigates a landscape drenched in love, betrayal, murder, and witchcraft. So very Love Witch based, which I watched the movie Love Witch. I can appreciate what it was trying to do, but me personally, I was not one to really like it. Like, I'm like, okay, watched it, know what it is now, don't need to watch it really again type of situation. I'm hoping that this kind of feels different to that, though. So I'm still excited to check this out. I'm hoping that it's not really slow because it's a physical read, and we all know that I have problems reading physically. So let's all just hope that that's not the case. But very excited for this one. My next physical read, like I'm over here like some of the books are going to topple. My next physical read is a classic, Girl Interrupted by Susanna Kaysen. Everyone in the world has probably seen Girl Interrupted at this point. I know that I watched it when I was going through this whole... I watched it in high school. I was trying to impress some guy who's really, like, into movies with plot and blah, blah, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna start watching so much more serious movie. Thank you to that guy. You know, silver lining, I became such a more, like, involved movie person because of that. But also, high school Kelsey, like... we never try and chase a man. That was wild. That was wild that she did that. That being said, I did watch Girl Interrupted. It screwed me up. It really, like, I can't hear the song It's the End of the World ever because it just automatically depresses me because of the scene involving Brittany Murphy. And it's even worse because of everything that happened with Brittany Murphy. I mean, you know, also I can't really look at, what's-her-face, Angelina Jolie without going, you actually might be really crazy, though. Like, I really do think you might be a sociopathic person. Like, I could see that a lot from that movie. I really do like that movie. I think it's really good. It has Whoopi Goldberg in it. She does a great job in that movie. I've always wanted to read the book. It is based on the actual journals from Susanna Kaysen during her time in an insane asylum, and I've always wanted to read it. I got it after my internship at Penguin Random House last year, and I've been waiting to read this when the time felt right. Considering how small of a kind of novel this is, I think that I can move through it. It's 170 pages or so, and I feel like it's possible. Again, if I do a 24-hour read, I could see me finishing this. If you don't know what it is, I'm going to tell you the plot, but honestly, like, watch the film. The film's really amazing. It's really heartbreaking and depressing. So it's not like a great film. Like, oh my God, this is so wonderful. I'm so glad that I watched this. But it's a good one. In 1967, after a session with a psychiatrist she'd never seen before, 18-year-old Susanna Kaysen was put in a taxi and sent to McLean Hospital. She spent most of the next 2 years in the ward for teenage girls at a psychiatric hospital as renowned for its famous clientele, Sylvia Plath, Robert Lowell, James Taylor, and Ray Charles, as for its progressive methods of treating those who could afford its sanctuary. Kaysen's memoir encompasses horror and razor-edged perception while providing vivid portraits of her fellow patients and their keepers. It is a brilliant evocation of a parallel universe set within the kaleidoscopically changing landscape of the late 60s. Girl Interrupted is a clear-sighted, unflinching document that gives lasting and specific dimension to our definitions of sane and insane, mental illness, and recovery. So, very excited to finally read this. I feel like, I know it's a memoir, but it's got, like, physical, like, visual aids in there of documents. I think there's a lot in here, and I think it's very possible to read through this. It's not something that's overtly explanatory, and I think because I love the movie so much, I think this would be great to kind of provide a little bit of context on a lot of it. So excited to read this sometime this month as well. My last physical read is actually a part of another book club, which is with a fellow bookstagrammer, Ashley, over at Coffee and Cuentos. You guys should really check her out if you're into short stories and translated novels. Cuentos is the Spanish word for basically short story. And she basically chooses every month a short story, usually translated or usually it's from the Latina community, for the book club reading. This month's was Reservoir Bitches. I couldn't get that out. Wonderful cover. I love a green cover. At one point, I've heard that green covers don't sell, like while I've been in a cover meeting for work. That's weird to me. That sounds crazy to me. I would buy up a green cover in a second. This is wonderful. Yeah, another indie publisher is by the Feminist Press in New York, and it's a collection of short stories based on women in Latin America. And like they're speculative, it's kind of speculative horror type of thing, but mainly a femme radical short story collection by Dalia de la Cierta is the editor. I don't think that she wrote all of them. I don't know though, don't quote me on that. She might have wrote all of these, but it is a short story collection, so they're all different. I was planning on reading this anyways, and it was either reading it during, the other thing that I'm really trying to do as well is not simply, and this was something that I was talking to somebody about, was that I think sometimes we as like readers have a tendency to have whiteness as the reset. What I mean by that is like, oh, it's Women's History Month. And then people gather all these women-led stories, and they're all by white women. And it's kind of the idea that like, oh, I'm reading for nothing but women, like, or I'm watching only women's stories. And like people, women of color and stuff like that are regulated to their heritage celebrated months. And white women get to have Women History Month when it's like, well, it's Women History Month, not, specifically white women. And I think that that's something that I wanted to be more conscientious of going into March. I can't remember my TBR from last year, but I don't think that that's something that I did, but I do see that quite a bit. And so picking these books, I wanted to be sure that like the eyes are the best part, like that's an Asian author, and I didn't just want to regulate her to, oh, I can only read her in May. Like, I didn't want that. And Sugar, she's a Black Indigenous author, and I didn't want to go, oh, I wanted to read that only in February, or the trans, like, femme novels I'm about to read, I don't just want to read you in June. Like, these are all women, period. And the same thing goes for this. It was a possibility of me reading this in September, but I do have a lot of Latino horror, and I felt like this feels more closely related to the idea of misogyny and women's rights and everything. And so that's why I picked up this one for my TBR this month. And it also worked out because it could be a book club read. So reading the synopsis, life's a bitch. That's why you gotta rattle her cage even if she's foaming at the mouth. And the 13 linked stories of Reservoir Bitches, Mexican women prod the bitch that is life and become her. From the all-powerful daughter of a cartel boss to a victim of trans femicide, from a household of spinster seamstresses to there's a lot of S's in there, to a socialite who supports her politician husband by faking indigenous roots. These women spit on their own reduction and invent new ways to endure, telling their own stories in bold, unapologetic voices. At once a work of dark humor and social critique, Reservoir Bitches is a raucous, wrenching debut from one of Mexico's most thrilling new writers. Oh my god, there was so much in there that I was struggling with. Yeah. Those are just like little tidbits of the conversation. I love that trans femicide was mentioned in this book as well. That, again, in the conversation of women, we need to include trans women in that conversation or else we're still not doing our job. So yeah, this is only 180 pages, I want to guess. About a little over 180 pages. Another physical read. I'm concerned. I am concerned. I think I need to maybe either I do the 24-hour read or I have to dedicate a book a week, or a physical book a week, which is even harder for me personally because I never sit down and just read a book, but slowly chipping away maybe on the weekends would probably be most beneficial and doable for me, but we will see. I'm very, very excited for all of my physical reads. So I don't want to pick just one to get rid of either. Slowly but surely we'll move through it. I think my biggest concern is finishing Sugar because Sugar feels like it's more of a full-length novel than a short story novel. Like Girl Interrupted is very short, and Reservoir Bitches is a collection of short stories, but Sugar feels and is kind of presented like it's a full-length novel, and that kind of scares me. I have two more books as well on my TBR. First and foremost, by Andrea Lawler, Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl. I'm really excited to start reading this book. It's more speculative fiction than it is a horror novel, which is fine. I love speculative fiction. But it is something that's like weird things are happening. It's 1983 and Paul Polydorus tends bar at the only gay club in a university town, thrumming with politics and partying. He studies queer history, has a lesbian best friend, makes zines, and is a flaneur with a rich dating life. But Paul's also got a secret. He's a shapeshifter, oscillating wildly from riot girl to leather cub. Paul transforms his body and his gender at will as he's across the country, a journey and adventure through the deep queer archives of struggle and pleasure. Paul Takes the Form of a Mortal Girl is a riotous, razor-sharp Bildungsroman. I need to look that up, because I don't even know what that is. Whose heroine wins her way through a world gutted by lost palsy with music and opening into an array of intimacy and connections. Honestly, it sounds really good and alien in a way, and weird and fun and all these different things. So I'm very excited to read this one. I think after I finish Dearest, I'm probably going to go into this one because it seems the most fun, even though it's longer than my other audiobook that I have, which is by Casey Plett, Little Fish. This one is definitely very literary fiction, instead of it being more like horror or speculative. It's definitely literary. It's the dead of winter in Winnipeg, and Wendy Reamer, a 30-year-old trans woman, feels like her life is frozen in place. When her Oma passes away, Wendy receives an unexpected phone call from a distant family friend with a startling secret. Wendy's Opa, grandfather, a devout Mennonite farmer, might have been transgender himself. At first, she dismisses this revelation, but as Wendy's life grows increasingly volatile, she finds herself aching for the lost pieces of her Opa's truth. Can Wendy unraveled the mystery of her grandfather's world and reckoned with the culture that both shaped and rejected her. She's determined to try. Alternately warm-hearted and dark-spirited, desperate and mirthful, Little Fish explores the winter of discontent in the life of one transgender woman as her past and future become irrevocably intertwined. I am really excited to read that because of the fact in the conversation of, you know, what right now is politically like relevant in the conversation, that a lot of people just feel like trans people just woke up yesterday and all of a sudden we're everywhere. It is known that trans people have always been here, and it's known that a lot of people who were trans have had to be as passing as possible when they were trans in order to not be killed or tortured or just quality of life being shit. And I think that the idea, and y'all know how I love literary fiction that just talks about family and family issues through the scope of politics, because I think for a lot of us who are like some of the first or only ones who are openly queer in their family, they feel like they're the only ones who've ever been queer in their family, which absolutely doesn't make sense, because if you look at any sort of data, it shows that you cannot be, in the decades and centuries of your family's tree, the only queer person who has ever been in your family. You've just been the first out person in your family. And as more and more people come out, as more and more people are being open and vulnerable about their family's background and learning more and taking into conversation and taking it into their responsibility to learn more about the people who were in their family, the more you start to realize that, like, you are not the only one, and that your great-great-grandfather or grandmother or whoever could have been non-binary, and just they didn't have the resources to be what they truly were, or talk about it openly, or even approach it in any sort of way, because there was no example of it. So I really, really can't wait to read that book. Those are the audiobooks that I have. I have Dearest, and then I have those two. Everything else that I have is a physical read. So essentially, I'm basically half of my reads for this month are half and half. Now, The Eyes Were the Best Part was also an audio read, but I've already finished that. So as I'm telling you this right now, and we're not even through a week of the month, I think it'll be very interesting to see what I end up finishing by the end of this month for sure. And again, none of these are very long ones. I think I get a little shaky when I see double digits pop up for an audiobook, just because I like a shorter, straight to the point, but powerful read. I'm hoping that because none of these are that long, I will finish them and they'll give a lot of time for my physical reads. But, you know, we will only see. I think I'm just being very optimistic of the possibilities. One, all things considered, February is a shorter month. So I'm hoping also like those extra days will matter. But also knowing me, I will find other ways to use those extra days and my extra time. That is my TBR for the month of March. I'm very, very excited for it. I mean, all of them, I love femme horror. I cannot say that enough, and I think that it moves me the most. I think the more, you know, as we're putting out the Night Terror issue for this month that focuses on femme horror and the murderous mavens, I think it's very, very great to kind of look and do a lot of research looking at movies and books and see how many horror-filled women-led stories are coming out now, which of course is indicative of our times and our society and where we all are with our frustrations and fears. But also it's very freeing to see women get weird. Women get angry, rage-filled, weird, bloody, aggressive. Like, it's really amazing and freeing to see all this. So I cannot wait until when I give y'all my wrap up for the end of the month, because I am excited for a lot of these stories. The other thing that I'm excited for is that sometime during this month, somebody on Instagram did a feminine, what was it, murderous feminine post, and it was breaking the murderous feminine down into these different categories, like the mother and the murderous womb and the femme fatale and the vampire and all of these different tropes of murderous femmes, and I loved it. So I'm going to be using that kind of, it's based on an essay by, I think it was Barbara Clark, I think is the word that is the name of the person who wrote the essay, and it's from 1993. I'm gonna read the essay, but I want to do a video that kind of uses those tropes and breaks down some of my favorite books through the lens of some of those tropes, because it was really fun and on point kind of reading about them, and I want to maybe do like some movie pairings with them. We will see. We're going to be doing some watch parties over in the Discord throughout the month. I don't think that there's going to be as many as like there were for February, just because it is a lot to ask people to be there to ask me to be there every Friday, because I do have a life. I do want to go out every now and then or rest on a Friday, but I do want to maybe do like 2 a month routinely. And I think that'll be a lot of fun to fit some femme horror in this month, and even going into next month, maybe doing some nostalgia like watches and stuff, because it'll be my birthday month, stuff like that. I think it's be a lot of fun. So make sure that you follow us over in the Discord. We talk about books, and we do the watch parties, and that's where our book club discussions happen. It's a lot of fun over there, and I really want to build more of a community where we're all talking and sharing rather than me just making content for y'all 24/7. So yeah, follow us over there if you can. Thank y'all for watching another one of my yapping videos. I'm so excited again to show y'all all of this, but I am also very excited to move throughout the rest of this year now that the readathon was great, but it's tiring. So it's kind of like, okay, we can now ease through the rest of the year with our reading and feel comfortable and not as much pressure to move through the rest of the year. So especially starting where we are right now, Old School April is coming up soon. So y'all will be getting a lot of nostalgic readathons regarding that. If you don't know what Old School April is, make sure that you go follow Slime and Slashers Kelsey, the other Kelsey, over on her YouTube channel. She has a lot of fun videos planned. I participated in my first Old School April last year, and it was so much fun, and you're on teams, and it's very low stakes but nostalgic, and it's a watch-a-thon, a read-a-thon, an activity-a-thon. It's so much, and there's so much involved with it, and I'm actually really happy to say that I'm going to be involved with it in some form this upcoming year, this upcoming one that's coming in April. So stick around and stay tuned for that. Subscribe down below if you enjoyed today's video, and if you're looking forward to any of those videos I just mentioned, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.